Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a match that, well, the scoreline tells one story, but the reaction tells another. FC Barcelona, 3-3 against Club Brugge. Sounds exciting, right? 3 goals each. But if you dig just a little deeper like we did with our sources, this wasn't really about the goals. It felt more like an alarm bell ringing, exposing some serious issues. So our mission today for you is to use this really critical material from analysts close to the club to figure out how one match, even a draw, can just crater confidence and highlight these deep tactical problems that could, well, derail the whole season. We're looking at a symptom here, not just a result.
Exactly. And it's that feeling, that moral defeat, that's so striking. You score 3 away goals, usually it's okay, maybe even good. But here, the overwhelming feeling is just disappointment. The analysis we've seen is pretty much unanimous. The team's not growing, not learning, basically stuck. And the detail that really drives it home, I think, is how the other team felt. Reports suggest the Brugge players were actually sad afterwards. Sad. They felt they missed a huge chance to win because Barca seemed so vulnerable. When your opponent walks off feeling like that after a draw, that tells you something's wrong.
Okay, let's get into that stagnation. And, that points directly to the coach, doesn't it? This first segment is all about this crisis of identity and what the sources are calling Flick's, well, stubbornness. I mean, we're, 14, 15 games in? And the consistent message is no real improvement, no consistency, nothing really reassuring. Fans are, understandably, getting impatient. They want that Barcelona style, control, smart defending, not just relying on moments of attacking brilliance.
And what's really interesting is this gap the analysts see between Flick's words and his actions. He apparently talks about philosophy, about needing flexibility, but on the pitch, people are seeing, well, the opposite. Stubbornness. Repeating the same mistakes, almost like he's trying to force his initial ideas to work, even when they clearly aren't.
Right, and the result of that rigidity, it's the whole system looking shaky. Sources describe a midfield that's just disorganized, an attack that wastes chances, and fundamentally a system that's kind of broken and exposed. Huge gaps between the lines, they say.
That rigid approach you mentioned, it leads us straight to maybe the biggest tactical complaint we found everywhere in the sources. It's this really naive use of the offside trap. Yeah, it's not just a small tactical tweak they're getting wrong. It's become this defining feature of their defense, and it's failing spectacularly. The descriptions are brutal. Ugly, boring, dull, naive. I mean, when you hear words like that about a core tactic.
So why? Why is it failing so badly right now? The analysis suggests it's because it's become predictable. Opponents actually plan for it now. They know Barca is slow setting it up. And the result? It's like giving attackers a red carpet to the goal, as one source put it. There's no surprise, it's slow, and crucially, if it fails, which it does, there's no backup plan. It demands perfection this defense just doesn't seem to have.
And you can see how bad it is in the numbers, sort of. They let in 3, yeah, but the internal analysis suggests it could easily have been 4 or 5. That tells you it's not just bad luck or one player messing up. The sources are pointing to a fundamental issue with the defensive thinking, the whole organization. It's either too complex or too rigid. Either way, the coaching approach is under fire.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly, because this is where it gets weird tactically. If you just looked at the basic stats, you'd think Barcelona ran the show. But our sources draw this really crucial line between just having the ball possession and actually being in control.
Yeah.
The possession numbers were huge, right? 71, 72%. Normally that screams dominance. But the analysis you read argues that having the ball that much without ideas, without getting forward, without penetrating, well, it doesn't mean much anymore. It's just sterile possession.
Exactly right. And Club Brugge showed why. While Barca were passing it around the back, Brugge focused on controlling the space. They defended smartly, stayed compact, blocked the middle, then boom, quick transitions. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, let Barca have the ball out wide, save energy, then hit them fast when they lost it, exploiting those huge gaps that inevitably open up when a high possession team loses its balance. Controlling space beat controlling the ball. Simple as that.
And the real kicker. The first half, for all its problems, was apparently Barca's best possession half in like a month and a half, statistically. But underneath that, the defensive problems were still catastrophic. Pressing was messy, they were slow reacting to turnovers, and those gaps between the lines, massive, just structurally unsound.
Which brings us to the players, because when the system's shaky, you look at individuals, and the assessments in our sources are pretty harsh on some big names.
Yeah, embarrassing was a word used for some performances at this level. It seems the whole backline had issues based on the synthesis we did. Kounde, described as very weak, looked confused apparently. Analysts flagged his positioning as consistently poor. Then Araujo, normally so reliable, right? He was hesitant, wasn't winning his battles early on, and then made that strange defensive action leading to Brugge's second goal.
Strange. What does that even mean in this context? Like a mental error or just
Right.
caught out?
Seems like the latter, a moment of lost focus or bad judgment that, in this fragile setup, immediately cost them a goal. Wow. But the really detailed, almost forensic criticism seems reserved for Rashford. The analysis of his game is,
Yeah.
it's scathing.
It really is. They're saying he was totally out of sync. One report claimed almost 90% of his positioning was wrong.
90%. That's staggering. What's behind that number?
Well, defensively, he's reportedly not tracking back, just sort of there, leaving gaps. And then in attack, he's not sharp, always choosing the safe sideways or backward pass instead of making those aggressive runs needed to actually break down a defense.
Yeah, one analyst said watching his sideways passing will make you sick. That really paints a picture, doesn't it? He's contributing to that sterile possession we talked about, not solving it.
Absolutely. And it means the hard work of players like Frenkie de Jong, who sources say was constantly trying to connect things and cover those huge gaps, just gets swallowed up by the overall chaos. He's trying to fix a system problem with individual effort, and you just can't.
Okay, but it wasn't all bad. We have to talk about the bright spot. Because amidst all this mess, there was one player consistently praised, described as the only light for the team, Lamine Yamal. He's so young, but the sources rave about his maturity, his personality. They say whenever he got the ball, suddenly there was hope, an idea, something different. He was constantly creating danger, basically making something out of nothing, even when he was isolated out wide.
Yeah, his ability to just conjure chances almost by himself was apparently the only reason Flick's score more than them approach wasn't a complete disaster. He was the first and last danger for Barca. He looks like the future, even as the rest of the team seems stuck repeating past mistakes. And just to tie off the defensive issues, the sources also made a point of highlighting how effective Bruges' attacker Forbes was. Troublesome and fast, they called him. His directness just proved that Barca's defense, Kounde, Araujo, whoever was back there, couldn't handle that kind of pace and movement in transition. They were reacting too slowly, thinking too slowly.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up for you. What have we really learned from digging into this 3-3 draw? It wasn't just a weird result. It feels like confirmation of some real fundamental problems. First, the coaching philosophy under Flick seems rigid, maybe stubborn, especially with that offside trap that's now backfiring badly. Second, the attack, with players like Rashford struggling and general inefficiency, just isn't potent enough to cover up the defensive mess. They're vulnerable at both ends.
And that leads to this immediate worry the sources highlight for the rest of the season. If they play like this against teams good on the counter, like, say, Villarreal or Bilbao in the league, they could be in serious trouble, let alone thinking about the Champions League knockouts. Facing clinical sides like Dortmund or Chelsea with this kind of defensive setup, that looks like a recipe for disaster. And the sources are pretty dismissive of using injuries as an excuse anymore. Injuries happen, they're reality. Management needs a system that works now, not one that needs everyone fit and firing on all cylinders.
Which leaves us, and you, with this final thought to chew on. If a top-level manager like Flick, someone who's recently seen as a lead, seems willing to risk the team's balance, maybe even his own reputation, by sticking with ideas that demonstrably aren't working, what does that tell us? About that tension between having a strong footballing philosophy, that Barca way, and needing to adapt to the players you actually have right now. When does vision become damaging rigidity? Something to think about until our next deep dive.